All but one is here. DiVincenzo, the guard for Milwaukee, Dante DiVincenzo, he played at Villanova. He got hurt. That's it. 29 of 30 players are available. The injury thing, there's injuries every year. It's being overplayed. I mean, Giannis, I watched him last night. I thought he was really good. He's not 100%, but again, it's a long season. Chris Paul, I don't think he's 100%. We found his story the other day. He's not 100%. Devin Booker's nose, probably still sore. He broke it last week. These seasons are really long. These are contact sports. These are large men colliding with each other all year for 5 months and then falling to a hard floor. Folks, if you've never gone to an NBA playoff game and sat close to the floor, you do not understand the amount of physical duress on your body. Every single one of these guys, including Chris Paul, he's tiny by NBA standards. Every one of these guys would walk into any room you're in and be significantly bigger than every other guy in the room. These are 6'5", 6'7", 6'9". They're hammering into each other for 3 hours. They have all year long, they travel on planes. Will they make a lot of money? Still 33,000 feet. It's still arriving in Cleveland and Boston at 3 in the morning. 5 hours sleep shoot around. So resting, by the way, is not the answer. That load management thing is not the answer. Because Phoenix and Milwaukee played, created chemistry. These teams did not load manage at all. Phoenix never did. And so the answer is working out, getting in the best shape of your life. You want to know who's hurt? James Harden came into the season out of shape. Anthony Davis came into the season out of shape. A lot of the guys that got hurt came into the season out of shape. These teams didn't, were focused, and they played together all season long. So availability is a skill. By this time, forget NFL and hockey, where you're smashing into each other. In basketball, by the end of the season, this morning, between these two teams, everybody's either got a jam finger, a tight calf, a sore back, a nose that just got broken, a thumb that's, Chris Paul, not right, or just hyperextended their knee. That's other than, Landon Galloway of the Suns. He's played like 10 minutes. He's probably 100%. Nobody else is. I mean, that's just the reality of pro sports. By the end of seasons, I talked to Trent Dilfer about this. He's like, by week 4 in the NFL, you're just asking teammates, what's hurt? It's not a matter of if you're hurt, what's hurt. It's pro sports, highest level. That's why LeBron and Brady and Russell Wilson spend over $1 million a year just for like plyometrics, just to get through these seasons. Antoine Walker played in the NBA for 12 years. He's now joining us live. Had a championship in Miami with the Heat, 3-time All-Star. So, it's funny, Antoine, when we talk about injuries, I mean, you know it well, 12 years in the NBA, especially your last 4 or 5 years, I think most of these pro sports feel like attrition. Who's the most, right? Like, I mean, I watched that game last night, and I thought Giannis played pretty well, right?
Oh, he played great. It was unknown how good he could be. Only people that had that injury would understand that. I worried about him going east and west, and he probably worried about it as well. But he was terrific. I thought he showed athletic ability. I thought he still was able to move and compete at a very, very high level. And I think he probably got over the fear. He had to get over that fear. You saw late in the game, even when the game probably was out of reach, I thought he made 3 aggressive moves at top speed. And I think that's important as this series goes along.
Now, what does Milwaukee have to do, Antoine? They're not great at making adjustments all the time, but what adjustment or two do they have to make?
Well, they're going to have to play Giannis at the 5. I think you saw them have a lot of success because of the switching defense that they want to play. It's just not a great series for Brook Lopez. Chris Paul and Devin Booker, those guys are going to take advantage of him, and they did that. Chris was terrific with the mismatches in the pick and roll. So I think they're going to play Giannis at the 5, which is going to create a different lineup than they used to have it. Bobby Portis usually comes in and subs in for Giannis. You're going to have to play him and Giannis together, I think, throughout this series. And those adjustments they're going to have to make game in and game out. But it's tough because Brook Lopez shot the basketball well last night.
Yeah.
And he can play. He's playing good basketball. But this is not a great series for him. This is a series where Giannis, they're going to have to play a little small ball. And we saw the Clippers have success against Phoenix playing small ball. So this is going to be a different series for Brook Lopez.
Yeah, Jay Crowder didn't play well. Everybody else for the Suns pretty much played well, and Jay just didn't shoot particularly well. You know, it is interesting when I look at Chris Paul. He's now become a scorer in the last couple of games for Phoenix. That's not his natural affinity. Is more light scoring, distribution, annoying defender. Have we undervalued Chris Paul, the scorer? Or, I mean, do you believe that he kind of senses, okay, this is the moment in my career to get a title. I'm going to take more shots. What do you make of his elevated scoring over the last couple of weeks?
Well, I think the last couple of years, I think even in OKC, he really did a terrific job of picking the spot scoring. But he does win the picking spots with this team. He relies heavily on getting Devin Booker involved, and then obviously getting Aiden for layups and making sure guys get open threes. But that's what makes Chris Paul special, is he knows when he needs to take over games. And if he gets a mismatch in a situation throughout a game where he has an advantage, he's been money. He's been lights out. And that's what you saw in the third quarter. He came out and really dominated and put his step on the game, increased that lead, really took advantage of the pick and roll. But that's what separates himself right now. And I do think, too, Colin, it is a little desperation, and he's waited 16 years for this moment. And he's going to empty his clip. You know what I mean? He's going to make sure he empties his clip.
You know, it's funny. We were talking about this earlier, Antoine, is that, to that point, I think Chris realizes, hey, I'm not getting younger. These young guys are listening to me. My personality can wear people out. And I'm serious about this. If the Suns win, Antoine, the temperature in the locker room won't be the same. It's like when the Cubs won a couple years ago with those young guys. They came back the next year. They all had a little more money. You know, they're a little more empowered. And I do think it's not that the Suns won't be good next year, but this team needed to be led, and Chris is a leader. But I think he's smart enough to know as the players get better and they win titles, is it possible next year the locker room won't be quite as willing to be led by Chris all the time? Is that fair?
No, I agree with you 100%. And the locker room may be a little different. You got Cameron Payne, who's just had a career year. You don't know who's going to come knocking at his door, so he may not be in the locker room. You may lose him. Aiden is going to be looking at a big contract. It'll be different. And when you win it all, I mean, you get a different swag about yourself. You kind of feel like you have arrived, and you may not be as willing to learn. Do you get in the gym as hard as you got in the gym this year to get ready for the season? Do you put that same effort and energy? Do you want to win multiple titles? Do you believe you can win multiple titles? So it definitely can be a difference come locker room time. But I think Chris Paul understands this is their window to win the title. Because next year, the Western Conference will be back stacked. Golden State will be back in the mix. LeBron will have a chip on his shoulder. He'll be ready to go. And Utah still be good, and Portland. So you still will have good quality teams in there. Jamal Murray will be back for Denver. So the Western Conference will be right back tough again. And I think Chris Paul understands that. You
know, it's interesting. We've talked about health. And I kind of look at both these teams and I think to myself, well, I mean, everybody's a little banged up, but Giannis and Chris Paul have made it through. It's an interesting situation. If you own the Suns, Chris Paul's 36, he's had injuries. And if Cameron Payne did leave, he'd have to play more minutes. I would love to have Chris Paul back, but if he demanded 4 years,